It's amazing how much of the day we spend focused outside on different tasks, different scenes, situations, different people, and even different distractions. Very little time inside with the self, facing the self, being true to the self. The relationship with the self is not true, honest. The heart is disturbed. And yes, my mind will endeavor to resolve that disturbance by going outwards. But the disturbance is still there, creating so much noise deep inside. To truly heal the relationship with the self, so there is self-trust, self-understanding, self-respect, I will have to face the self. Be true with an open heart. Become quiet and listen. Not to fear facing the self, but simply to care for the self. Listen. The heart misses nothing, no matter how much the mind tries. The heart knows. And so I become quiet and listen honestly to my heart. I can feel my heart's single intention is to maintain the honor and dignity of the self. It is my ally. It will never judge. The heart understands. I develop a relationship in silence with the self through the heart being true. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, good evening, and welcome to Interview with Raj Yogi. And tonight's session is a clean heart to absorb the truth. So it was a meaningful reflection. And I was thinking about a biting conscience, but perhaps maybe if we could maybe explore a little bit of what truth means, because sometimes that might be abstract to some, and sometimes I know you hear souls mention there's your truth, my truth. So how does that play out when it's your truth, my truth? It seems like truth is a very subjective thing when it comes to a clean heart, because and then that would also be quite subject to what a clean heart is then.
I believe that many feel truth is absolute and that there is one. And truth is that which is eternal. So it's not going to change over time. It's not dependent on time. It transcends that. So it's what is eternal. What might be happening is a couple of things when we say your truth and my truth is that we change over time. And so our capacity to grasp the truth or our perspective on the truth is what's creating variety. They have the famous, I don't know, allegory, metaphor about the blind men feeling the elephant, right? And some say it's a trunk and some say it's something else. That's one object, but they're all blind at that moment. So they're going by whatever feedback they're able to glean. And it's just a piece of it. And it's based so much on subjective. What has been my experience feeling that kind of surface? So I connected to a tree. Someone I connected to someone else, but I'm convinced that's what's going on, that this is a tree. So it's based more and more on my stuff, sometimes in a state of blindness, but my experience is my stuff through that lens or filter rather than the absolute, a very clean filter.
Could one say that maybe it's not levels, but perhaps maybe just the integrity of the situation? I know we're talking about the absolute truth, but just when you're sharing, for some reason, it suddenly came to mind about your experience. You had mentioned about some spiritual realizations or insights before you even came into the study. And one of them you had mentioned about a friend who had cancer. And I know you were sharing this the other day, that I don't know if relapse, and it was clear that the prognosis wasn't good, but you had shared that she had mentioned that, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to get through this. But then, at the point in time, something changed. Like, how do you not interpret that situation, but how does what we're talking about, how is that relevant to what her experience is?
What enables, if there's filters, things I've experienced, or if you will, attached to these filters that are distorting my experience of what's truly going on, then if I can let go of those filters, I can see more clearly what is going on. It's the letting go that's an issue. Now, when someone's leaving the body like that, I mean, letting go is inevitable. And I think that as I could feel that as the soul was letting go, they were able to see things increasingly in a different way. So, this clean connected to detaching so that it's becoming less and less subjective. The things I'm attached to are more and more clear, objective.
Now, you had one time mentioned, and you were using an analogy that, or maybe I made up this analogy, I can't remember. But if you have a surface that you need to apply some sort of adhesive to, but it's not clean, it's probably got residue and whatnot, and you have to clean that surface for that adhesive to be effective. So what does that look like spiritually speaking when it comes to a heart that isn't clean? Or what is a clean heart? Because I've had souls ask me, what does that really mean? Seems quite abstract to some.
So I think in day to day life, when we talk about moving forward with a clean heart, many feel it means there's no hidden agenda or intention. It's very, if you will, selfless or pure. There's not any sort of personal desire that's kind of, again, distorting. Um, so to be able to become free of all of those influences, um, the more, I suppose, content one is, then the cleaner their heart will be. But I think there comes a point where it's just so exhausting to maintain and juggle all of those attachments that one eventually just wants to come clean. And that's different for everyone. Some can resist for a very, very long time, and some are even deceived into thinking they are coming clean. So it's very tricky to be that clear with the self that it's the blind the blind aspects or pressures such as desires, fears, attachments, all those. I have to be free from those.
You're reminding me of you had shared about Viktor Frankl, and again, for those online who do not know about the soul who was in the concentration camps, I believe in Auschwitz in World War II, I think. But yes, one of the concentration camps. And I often hear you share, and that's just one example. But in terms of even an extreme situation where there is suffering, there is sorrow, that this is a soul who took personal responsibility in terms of what he was going to be experiencing in such a place where it's easy to be blaming others. So, what does taking personal responsibility mean when it comes to a clean heart, or are they connected?
Definitely, there must be an element of courage in having a clean heart and personal responsibility. Yes, that I no longer, that courage or bravery to no longer be a victim. That definitely distorts things because I'm constantly rationalizing. And that's basically distracting from looking at things clearly. So, a lot of courage, if you will, to move from victim to empowered, which we could say is personal responsibility, that I'm really going to look and see what am I doing, and to see that so objectively is quite a challenge.
And it's interesting because we are talking about Raj Yoga, which is about the aspects of being a soul. Who do I belong to? But even just learning about being a soul, that itself is an aspect of truth. But one needs a clean heart to absorb the truth. So around and around we go. So when it comes to Raja Yoga, how does that all work? Because we all are very unreal with ourselves, and we come, so to take the course, hoping. Well, some of us don't even know what on earth we're taking to begin with, but something resonates. So is it that we have to have a clean heart to begin with, coming into the course, or how does that all work, especially in terms of wanting to make progress?
I'm not sure. I know it sounds odd to say that we don't necessarily need a clean heart. The odds are we probably don't have one, but we will need one to progress. Because I even have to look cleanly at what my effort is. Am I really soul conscious, or am I deceiving myself? So I will eventually need it if I want to progress.
Is there something preliminary to having a clean heart? And just in terms of what does it mean to absorb the truth? especially we are in a time where we can be quite intellectual. And I notice that many students share their struggles with, they learn about aspects of knowledge in Raja Yoga, but they don't know how to translate that in terms of them, um, how they respond to situations. They find they're still struggling with just being very reactive.
I suppose that as ideally self respect, that courage grows, I would be more clear with myself because the one thing I want to be honest about is, am I using the method? It's amazing when we say intellectual, this gap between theory and practical. I can understand everything theoretically, but what matters is, what do I practice? And is there a gap? Can I look honestly and clearly and see there's a gap? That I can recite the method, but I can't use it. And quite honestly, fear is going to be huge. And that's being honest too. I'm afraid, rather than making up other things. Souls will say, I don't have time, or just, I'm afraid, or I'm really attached. Just to come clean is really creates some freedom, some movement for the soul. So I always have to look honestly at my efforts.
So it's interesting you're sharing. The moment you were sharing, I was also just thinking about when you're admitting something that you can't seem to grasp or you're reacting. If you can explore, share more about why that means to be clean, because there's a lot of ego where it's like admission of one's limitations of where they're at, or might seem like a point of weakness, but it sounds like it's actually um, a clean heart in terms of something that can actually change. The vicious cycle can actually be broken.
Yeah, I think, sometimes it's just, I wonder if clean heart is connected with sense as well, because to hide something is never going to move me forward. So, let's say if I'm looking at a physical endeavor and I'm struggling with a push up, but I'm going around saying, no, no, I can do them. It's okay. I'm not sure what I'm gaining, rather than saying, you know what, I am having difficulty. Now opportunities will open. Um, Solutions will come, but I can never really get forward more forward by claiming something that's not actually happening. So, yes, I can feel the frustration. And one of the things, again, I know you said personal responsibility, but consistently looking at the self. So if I'm given a method and I'm not seeing progress, our first impulse might be to blame the method and say the method is not working, even though earlier I recognized this is it. I really was attracted to the method, but it's something, I'm not getting the results that the method promised. So then we blame the method. Sense would be to say, okay, let me look at myself. Am I using the method as I have been told? So, yeah, maybe it's back to timing. I don't know, but um, even just consistently looking at the self takes a lot of courage.
Going back to that example of Viktor Frankl, in terms of taking personal responsibility, and perhaps maybe in terms of just if you're open to, if you're able to share from your own personal discoveries or personal insights of how, because Viktor Frankl didn't have knowledge of being a soul, but how have you found just learning about, experimenting with, and realizing that your soul has helped you to see something differently in terms of situations where it seems it's so justified to get angry at others or say, it's their, it's their fault or whatnot. And I mention that because it's a fine line in terms of we just swing in the other direction and we just blame ourselves and we become subservient. And sometimes we say, be a doormat, or you just become a martyr and you just feel bad and sorry for yourself. So we seem to just swing on one end or the other end in terms of everything in life, in terms of challenges and struggles. And this is just one of them. How have you experienced soul consciousness where you actually preserve a sense of self respect or discover self respect and taking personal responsibility, not in blame, but in a dignified way?
When I go into the experience of being a soul, there's a massive amount of detachment, and that frees me to go into a different alignment, or you might say a different feeling, a different perspective. But it's again the attachment that's really not allowing me to see or feel differently about things. If I'm honestly going into soul consciousness, I will shift. So that alone is an excellent signal or feedback as to whether or not I'm honestly doing that. Because to be soul conscious, I have to detach.
Perhaps maybe looking, well, we started late, so I'm not going to even mention about the time. But perhaps if you can share a bit more, what do you mean by detachment? What are you experiencing? Um, what are you, what is your attitude? What are you seeing, not physically speaking, but what is that world like of detachment? Not just feelings, but there must be like a whole lens of reality that's different.
I suppose one of the examples we use, and we've used it many times before, is the astronaut going into outer space. They have to detach from the gravitational pull, but before they get into the rocket and set off, they're involved in their day-to-day life, and they're seeing that through that very microscopic lens. Maybe they had an argument with someone, or they did whatever. They have to go grocery shopping. I imagine they're not doing these things before they get into the rocket, but just to imagine the minutiae of it all. And then they get into the rocket and they jettison out in a phenomenal and assuming a phenomenal position relative to their previous one. They now have a completely different perspective. And so their priorities have shift, their attitudes shift, their feelings shift. And many have described it as a spiritual experience. It's very natural because they were able to move out, detach, see things differently. So the feelings, the thinking, everything changes very naturally. That is what soul consciousness is trying to do. How I process things will shift if I'm in that state of freedom, of a different perspective. As long as there's this incredible mind, and image, I stay in the minutiae.
It's interesting you're sharing because souls are oftentimes um, getting away and feeling peace. But the peace that you're talking about, detachment, is very different. And how can one discern? Because it's tricky as well with meditation, because probably one of the number one things that souls mention is trying to stay awake. And so they might be having a peaceful experience. But would it be that your understanding, it's just not what I'm feeling, would be different?
Yeah, it's something I've always appreciated about Raj Yoga is it's so insistent on integration, on being present in day-to-day life. And part of the reason for that is to know whether or not I'm actually doing the thing. If meditation is to me about getting away, about checking out so I can have a really blissed out experience, that will never really integrate into anything. If I'm really there things won't affect me the same way. And I don't have to move away from anything. I literally have reframed, have realigned, reset. I feel and think and see differently. So to check, are those things my thoughts, my vision, my feelings as I continue to move around? Are they different? Even something simple like driving in traffic, someone merges in front of you unexpectedly. And literally, if I'm so conscious of that moment, I will first be accurate, I will drive safely, but also I will feel very differently, very different, very naturally. So this is a huge check for us, is to see, am I honestly using the method?
It would be lovely to continue, but I believe we should conclude with a reflection.
Honesty is about honoring the self. So I need to know the self that I am honoring. It's not protecting my image or maintaining desires or attachments. It's honoring the self, I, the soul, a very elevated being with remarkable capacity for benevolence. Honoring that self, the true self. That will require so much letting go, letting the past be the past, letting the temporal come and go, and letting the mind release those thoughts that are not relevant. Honoring just that single thought. I am a spiritual being. Nothing here in the physical world is really mine. But what is mine is my true nature. Very peaceful, very benevolent. This is the truth. I will have to give so much care and attention as I go through the day to honor that truth by constantly remembering, letting go to remember. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, thank you for joining with us this evening. So, in terms of upcoming sessions, we have learned about meditations. So, drop in. Registration is helpful, but it's okay if you do not. So, learn about meditation on Saturday, July 27th at the Academy, 12:15 to 1:30 p.m. And also, we'll be sending out a notice soon to all to save the date for Friday, August 9th, Raksha Bandhan at the Scarborough at 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We will not be live streaming just due to some technical limitations, but so it will only be an on-site program. However, we will record it and upload it onto the YouTube channel. And of course, we have drop in sessions at the Inner Peace Center, as well as online in English and Hindi. So please visit the website for more information. And of course, send an email if you have questions or topics you wish to explore. Om Shanti.